No aga kuna on pealelõunane aeg, vaikselt tuleb tukk peale, igaüks surfab seal vaikselt oma telefonis, ma näen meditatiivselt, siis teeme väikese sellise sirutuse, et alustuseks üldse ma lasen sirutada meie külalistel ja tutvustan siis natuke võib-olla tiimiga, et kes ikkagi kaasa lõid ja panustasid. Alustame siis Islandilt ja Islandilt we have Hulda and Otni here. Can you stand up? It's just, after the lunch and it's good to, wave. Ja tegelikult oli Islandilt ka Aari, aga Aari pidi juba täna istuma bussi peale, et siin Tartus kell 9 ja sõidab Malagasse puhkama. Aga ta on teinud ka suure töö ära. Ja siis Austraaliast on meil täna kohal Jane, Jane, eesti keeles Jane. Jane on Eestis juba 3. korda ja Jane tegelikult töötab ülikoolis, aga täna siin ta on Youth Workers Associationi poolt, jah, correct. Ja tegelikult on Austraaliast projektiga seotud Tim Corney, associate professor Tim Corney, aga tema kahjuks juba hakkas tulema, juba oli Londonis ja siis juhtus perekonnas üks väike kriis ja ta pidi Londonist sõitma tagasi Austraaliasse ja ei jõudnudki meie juurde, millest on hästi kahju, sest tema on väga palju panustanud sellesse. No ja siis on Eesti tiim, Eesti tiimis on Heili, kes just rääkis, Salome, tõuseb ka püsti, lehvitab, ei ole midagi siin praegu, Kristi ja mina ise. Nii, no natuke on elavam tunnen ju. Ja no siit maalt ma teen veel väikese tiiseri eesti keeles ja siis ma lähen üle inglise keele peale, kuna meil on külalised ja ma tegin ka slaidid inglise keeles ja siis veel filmitakse ka ja siis ma saan lihtsalt üle maailma kuulsaks, sest et siis me hakkame seda videot igal pool lihtsalt levitama. Sest see on ikkagi dissemination of project results. I was just telling that I'm going to be famous because we are doing the video and then it's going to spread all over the world. But first I'm going to make a short teaser in Estonian because my slides are still in English and I'm going to talk in English, but the teaser in Estonian, okay? Et see 3 raportit valmib ja kõik 3 raportit tõlgitakse ka eesti keelde, selles mõttes te saate lugeda neid tulemusi täiesti sellises loodetavasti heas eesti keeles, ja saate nagu süübida, et täna me teeme väga lühikese sissejuhatuse lihtsalt, et mida me teada saime. Ja esimene etapp sellest projektist oli selline, et me uurisime siis või läksime nagu liikvele sellest, et kas siis noorsootöö on juba tunnustatud amet ehk professioon või on ta alles poolel teel selles suunas. Hästi oluline ka läheb väga kokku sellega, mida Edgar rääkis, et kes me oleme, kui palju me palka saame, mida me väärt oleme, mida me ühiskonnas teeme. Ja loomulikult seal on ka päris selline korralik teoreetiline plaan või nagu raamistik, need, kes just lõpetasid ülikooli ja kaitsesid magistritööd teavad, kui oluline on raamistada ikkagi oma uurimisprobleemid korralikult teooriaga või need, kes õppima tulevad alles, need saavad täna teada, kui oluline on raamistada uurimisprobleem teooriaga, et see on selline päris korralik arutelu ja seda võite siis lugeda juba tekstist. Ja siis me ikkagi läksime inimeste käest ka küsima, võib-olla ka teie seas on siin inimesi, kes vastasid küsitlusele 2020 või 19 lõpus isegi ja 2020 alguses oli meil ju küsitlus avatud ja kokku vastas üle 400 inimese Austraalias, Islandil ja Eestis, noorsootöötajad. Arvesse läks natuke vähem peale seda, kui küsimused ära nii-öelda puhastati, siis kõik vastused ei läinud arvesse, et jäi vist 346 või 7, eks ole, kokku. Aga ikkagi päris suur arv vastajaid, kes nagu avaldasid oma arvamust nii eetikateemadel, nii sellel teemal, mis teeb noorsootööst siis professiooni või tunnustatud ameti või veel ei tee, mis on hästi, mis on halvasti, millega noorsootöö põhiliselt tegeleb ja palju muud. Ja ma täna väga lühidalt siis nüüd edasi inglise keeles nagu räägin siis nendest tulemustest, aga palun lugege siis neid eestikeelseid kokkuvõtteid, kui need ükskord meie kodulehele ilmuvad suve lõpus või sügise alguses, jah? Ma püüan vahetada keelt nüüd praegu. Ei tööta. Ei tööta. Äkitselt läks tööle. So now I'm switching to English, so our guests who are almost already fluently speaking and understanding Estonian still can feel more comfortable also. Okay. So, of course, this first slide with logos, let me introduce the logos, is to underline that this is Erasmus Plus project and has a long name, but we call it gently Code. And the main goal was to carry on the research to kind of strengthen the evidence base of youth work and to find out what's the state of ethics in youth work very shortly. Is it important? Is it used? Is it necessary? Ei lähe jälle edasi. And we had two research questions. What are the main challenges related to a professionalization of youth work in Australia, Estonia, and Iceland? Coming back to what we have talked already today as well, that is youth work profession? Are we professional? Are we going towards it? And the second one was related to ethics. Is it used in youth work? Does it need changing? What's missing, and so on. Okay. Also, when we started our journey, we mapped how everything has started in Australia, Iceland, and Estonia, and it was quite apparent that around 2000 and something in all three countries, something happened, and we started to work with either occupational standards and or youth work ethics. So it was pretty much a similar time, and similar, maybe a more similar journey for Iceland and Australia, because the process of making the code of ethics in youth work was initiated and carried out by Youth Workers Association, but in Estonia, the main responsibility or the leading role was taken by the state. So here's a small difference maybe. Yes, and of course we have different history, different contexts, but I'm sure Australia and Iceland guests will maybe say a couple of words about Australian youth work and Icelandic youth work also when we start to talk. So I'm not really talking about this here. So the first, and as I said, in Estonian, we started our journey by reading a lot and writing a lot about what profession is, what professionalization means, and who is professional youth worker. And it appeared quite quickly that there's no one definition again who is studying at university or has just finished the studies. This is what happens when you read theory. You don't find one definition and one approach to the question. So there are a lot of different understanding about what profession is, what are the components of a profession, what makes a profession, and also a lot of debates of if youth work should become a profession, because are we winning something? We are known in the society, but are we also maybe losing something? The youth-centeredness, if we are more focused on ourselves and our profession and professional conduct and so on. So maybe there is a small battle of professions going on. Thank you. And I'm going to introduce you shortly with the first survey results, and a total of 407 youth workers from Australia, Iceland, and Estonia answered for this survey. And of course, just want to underline that we were also ethical in doing our research, as the research was also about ethics when we had to be ethical ourselves. Thank you. So key findings, very shortly. Over half of people who answered our survey, they already had a qualification in youth work or similar field, for example, psychology, education, social work. And respondents from Australia maybe were a bit more qualified in in youth work than Icelandic and Estonian youth workers. So regarding what youth work is about, everyone pretty much agreed that youth work is about active participation of young people, and youth workers should support active participation of young people. But there were two things which differed. For example, Estonia, respondents from Estonia and Australia stressed that education is very important for young people, that they get education. And what was also interesting, that when youth workers didn't have youth work specific qualification, they didn't pay much attention about cultural identity of young people, or didn't think this was important, so important in their work. What was good? Majority, most of the youth workers knew about code of ethics, but you may see on this picture of that those with formal qualification still knew more, and without formal education there were more people who who were not aware about code of ethics. So maybe this is a place to think about, where the education becomes important. And although youth workers said they know about the code of ethics and it is important, they also said that it's a static document actually, and it's not obligatory, and it sometimes doesn't really help to practice. It's a static document rather. Also, all youth workers, I mean from all countries, said that there's a lack of funding regarding youth work, and especially it doesn't help to meet the needs of young people the way we want to and are supposed to do in youth work. And that's also that there is not enough consistency in the practice maybe. And in the case of Estonia, we know it pretty well that mostly youth workers stay 1 to 2 years in youth work and then they leave, so the consistency or the sustainability of the practice is not really present. And maybe today here, as we are gathered among Estonian Youth Work Association members, it is maybe interesting to think about the role of professional associations. And you see how many of the respondents were part of the associations. So basically 70% of those who answered from Iceland were the members of the Association of Youth Workers, FFF, and I'm not pronouncing it either. About 58% of those who answered the survey were you and part of our members, and 18% from Australia, but it has to be noted that you can't become a member of Australian associations maybe so easily. You have to have either qualification or something equivalent to a qualification before you can become a member of association. And maybe this is also the way of professionalizing youth work in Australia, right, Jane? And what do youth workers expect from association? And I think today here we have talked and seen that the activities, at least in Estonian Association of Youth Workers, are very much addressing those needs. Because you see, the more answers behind the line, the more people want this. So sharing resources and information is, for example, one very important thing, and we are doing it here. Haley was telling us about the channels, the information letters, the info minutes, and so on. Another one which is also quite popular is providing professional development and training opportunities. Definitely, again, what we are doing here, and I know we are doing it in Iceland and Australia as well. But also what we were talking here about today is advocating to peak bodies and governments regarding youth work, and we just voted for the platform we want to lobby before the parliament elections, so that youth work matters go into those election platforms of different parties, so advocating is definitely expected from youth workers that associations do this work. Then, of course, advocating for pay and conditions, very important what youth workers expect, and professional standards, expectation to maybe communicate or speak for professional standards, but also networking events, and one such is just taking place here. So these are expectations of youth workers towards professional associations, and I would like to end my presentation with the last slide, which is going to appear in front of you right now. So to be a member of profession means acting professionally, and ethical considerations lay the foundation for that. Maybe this is we need to keep in mind, and we also need to keep in mind that the professional associations are upholders of this, and they support that this can happen. So with this, I'm going to end, and thank you for your attention. Do you have questions? If no, then I'll pass the mic